Green and Gold. Okay, that title, it paints a picture, doesn't it?
It really does. Evocative.
And it's actually the name of an independent film. A real passion project, it looks like, shot in rural Wisconsin.
Yeah, by filmmakers from the Upper Peninsula, interestingly.
But here's what really grabbed me. The involvement of Craig T. Nelson.
Ah, big name.
You know, from Coach, Parenthood, even way back to Poltergeist.
Right. And in this Green and Gold, it sounds like it wasn't just, phoning it in. It was something deeper for him.
Exactly. Seems really personal.
Which is what we're diving into today. We're looking at an article by Jennifer Champagne. It was in mynewberrynews.com back on May 2nd, 2025.
Okay.
The title is Actor Reflects on Legacy, Loss, and the Strength of Green and Gold. And it really gets into why this specific film, this indie project, resonated so much with him.
So our goal here is sort of unpacking that connection, understanding why Nelson was so drawn to it.
Precisely. And exploring what it tells us about those big themes: legacy, loss, family resilience, stuff that honestly connects with pretty much everyone, I think.
For sure. And what jumped out at me right away from the article was how Nelson described feeling this kinship with the story.
Not just another script.
No, exactly. He said it mirrored his own roots, his values, the whole life experience, especially the farming aspect shown in the film.
Mm-hmm. That connection to the land, the hard work.
Yeah, and he tied it directly to legacy. You have the quote there.
I do. He said, you start to realize the legacy your ancestors gave you, the values they instill, the work ethic they live by.
Right.
Farming is a hard life. It takes resiliency. And I think the film really brought that out. So it's this idea that who we are is like built on what came before.
And it wasn't just some abstract idea for him. He connected directly with the character he played.
A patriarch.
Yeah, this kind of weathered guy trying to hold everything together, the farm, his family after his daughter dies.
Which must have hit home for Nelson, being a father, grandfather, even a great-grandfather himself. He mentioned feeling that weight.
He did. He understood that burden Buck carried.
And this really shows how powerful characters work, doesn't it? They tap into universal feelings. Nelson could access that because of his own life.
But he also talked about the difficulty connecting across generations, especially with grief in the mix.
Yeah, he mentioned a barrier, Buck's guilt over his daughter's death, creating this distance.
That sounds intense, and it apparently climaxes in this barn scene between Buck and his granddaughter, Jenny.
Ah, yes, the barn scene. And this is fascinating. Apparently, Nelson himself rewrote that scene.
Really? The actor rewrote it?
Yeah, just before they shot it. The director, Anders Lindwall, had written the original version.
Wow. Why?
Nelson felt something was missing. He said, I read the original scene and felt like there was something deeper there. The words came. Just like that.
Huh. And the director, was he okay with that?
Totally on board. Lindwall said the rewrite added this authenticity, really showed Buck's heart.
That says a lot about Nelson's understanding of the character and the collaborative trust there.
Definitely. It shows how an actor's deep dive into a role can sometimes push the material even further.
It wasn't just about dialogue either, right? Nelson seemed tuned into Buck's inner life, the unspoken stuff.
Very much so. He pointed to a moment where Buck tries to pray out in a field.
But he can't.
Exactly. Nelson's take was, I don't think he knows how to pray. The words don't come. He's stuck.
Wow.
That's who this man is. He's not used to talking about his feelings even to God. It captures that kind of quiet stoicism you sometimes find.
That quiet emotional terrain, as Nelson put it. Understanding that unspoken layer seems key to how he played Buck.
Absolutely. That internal landscape defined the character for him.
And his commitment, it went beyond just the acting part. There's that story about the camera.
Oh, right. Day 2 of shooting, he notices they only have one camera rolling.
Which on an indie film maybe isn't totally surprising, but...
But Nelson immediately offers to pay for a second camera rental himself, out of his own pocket.
That's pretty amazing. What was his reasoning?
He basically said, you have too much to do and you want to be able to have options. Especially, he noted, when the setting itself is almost a character.
Like the farm, the land.
Exactly. He said the land, the farm, it's the stage. You need the scope to tell the story properly.
So he understood the visual needs of the story, more than just his own performance.
Totally invested in the whole picture.
He also had praise for others, didn't he? The cinematographer and composer.
He did, yeah. Russ Fraser on camera, Corey Martin doing the music. Nelson was really impressed by the score.
How so?
He said, I didn't even realize I was listening to music until halfway through the film.
Oh, that's the best kind of score sometimes.
Right. That's how good it was. It crept in and pulled you in emotionally. Shows how all those pieces have to work together.
Definitely a team effort. And speaking of colleagues, there was also a poignant part about Emmett Walsh.
Ah, yeah. His longtime friend. Sadly, this was Walsh's last film.
They'd worked together before, on Silkwood.
Hmm. Nelson described Walsh affectionately, called him a curmudgeon in the best way, smart, outspoken, and just couldn't help himself.
Sounds like quite the character.
But there was a really touching moment Nelson shared. Walsh apparently confided in him during filming.
About what?
About struggling with his lines, his memory. Nelson said, "It broke my heart. That was his craft. He loved it."
Oh, man. That's tough.
But Nelson's reaction was pure compassion. He just said, "But it didn't matter. We made it work. He was still perfect for the part."
Wow. That really speaks to their friendship and just humanity within the work.
It really does. Acceptance, making it work, finding the value beyond just the technical skill at that point.
It's also interesting how Nelson reflected on his own path. He wasn't always set on acting.
No, he mentioned almost becoming a tool and die maker.
Right. And he connected with the reporter about her father being in that trade. He had this real respect for it.
Yeah, he said something like, "I wasn't good at it, but I loved metal shop. And I see now how brilliant those trades really are."
Appreciating that craftsmanship.
That kind of craftsmanship, that legacy, it's powerful. It ties back again, doesn't it, to that theme of legacy?
It absolutely does, which
Yeah.
seems to be the core message he hopes people get from Green and Gold.
Legacy, connection.
Yeah. He hoped it reminds people of the connections we all have to each other, to the land, to something greater than ourselves.
That's a beautiful sentiment.
And he added a bit about authenticity, saying if we can drop the masks we wear and really listen, maybe we can hear what matters.
A call for genuine connection.
And ultimately, he felt the film was simply about love for the land, for each other, and for the things worth holding on to.
Which really brings it all together. Why this specific story resonated so deeply with him. It touched on fundamental things.
So to sum up this deep dive, it's clear Craig T. Nelson's work on Green and Gold was deeply personal.
Absolutely. His own life, his values, they really meshed with the film's themes, family, loss, that whole idea of legacy.
Which fueled his commitment, right? Not just acting, but rewriting scenes, even offering financial help.
And his appreciation for everyone involved, the director, the crew, his friend Emmett Walsh. It highlights that collaborative spirit, especially in indie film.
Yeah, and his reflections on his own life, his respect for different kinds of work, it all adds another layer.
And hopefully for you listening, exploring this has shown how, personal investment and shared human experiences can make a film truly powerful.
Especially seeing a well-known actor connect so profoundly with a smaller film like this.
Rooted in a specific place, a specific way of life, but with universal themes.
Definitely. So maybe a final thought for you to consider. Think about your own connection to legacy, your family's, your personal one.
How have things like loss or shared values maybe shaped those connections for you?
Or perhaps think about a piece of art. Could be a film, a book, music, whatever that really hit you on a personal level.
Yeah. What was it about that work that resonated so strongly? Why did it stick with you?
Because sometimes it's in digging into those personal connections that we find the deepest meaning.